let's see here. Hey, good morning and happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Social Media Pie Live. This is my live interview series where I bring on inspiring people to inform and educate you. And today I have with me very special guest, Susan Morgan Bailey. Hey, Susan, how are you doing today?
I am great. How are you?
I am doing really good. And as we're getting the conversation started, I'm just kind of getting woken up and everything and having my first cup of coffee for the day. And I was telling Susan, like before we started the show, I have like a run of show things that we do. And right before we go live, I tell her I'm going to click on the countdown ticker and pull it up. And I clicked on it without having the countdown ticker. And then I was scrambling, Susan. You couldn't see this behind the background, but I'm scrambling because I created a really fun countdown ticker with your photo on it. And I want to show you just a couple of seconds of it right now. So hold on, watch
this.
Okay. All right, I'm not going to show the full thing because it's going to take 30 seconds again, but it was like customized for you. And I did that work and then I clicked the wrong one.
Oh, so, bummer. I'm wearing the same earrings today as I was wearing in that picture. And I have the same yellow stripe of hair in that picture, which is natural. I don't do this, so it's not surprising I have the same.
Well, I am really looking forward to having a conversation with you today. And I want to welcome our guests. So anybody who's watching, whether you're watching live or you're watching this in replay, I'd love it if you could drop a comment below. This helps Susan and myself because then we know people are watching. We know the live stream is working. We're in a day and age of technology. And Susan, back in the conference days when we would start talking, we would like tap the microphone and say, "Can you guys hear me in the back?" You know, we do a sound check. And now we're in this virtual world and when we're doing live streaming, there's no way of telling that people are watching it really other than if people are commenting. So commenting helps us to see that you're watching. And I already see Christopher Johnson, and I'll pull your comments up on screen if you guys are introducing yourself. So don't be shy. All right. So before we get into our conversation, I just want to tell you guys, Susan and I, we've met several times, different HR events. The first one was at one of the Walsh College HR summits.
Yes. Okay. Sitting off to the side. Okay. You were. It was when you were knee deep in helping the well-known and esteemed Lee Meadows develop his social presence, and so I said, "What are you doing?" So we chatted about that.
Oh, yeah. And I was helping him with Meadows Consulting, promoting his consulting business and following around to different events, capturing video, helping him with whatnot, and meeting lots of great people like you, Susan. And you and I keep crossing paths. And a while back, I looked at your profile. I was like, well, how are we not connected? So I reached out. And then it was, I think a few months ago, we were both on a Troy Chamber call. And I messaged you. You reminded me of this. I messaged you in chat and I said, hey, do you want to come on a LinkedIn Live sometime? And you said, yeah, let's do it. So we're going to be talking today about, and you guys can see the topics right above, steps to move from mindful to mindful in a VUCA world. And before we do that, Susan, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what your business is all about?
So thank you for that. I am a little bit of a jack of all trades, so to speak, but currently I am focused on helping organizations develop strategies to take care of their people. So that can look a lot of different ways. I mean, for a long time, I was focused on the well-being aspect of that. In more recent years, I've expanded to culture and focusing more around the environment that surrounds individuals and the DE&I aspect of that. So it's a little bit of everything underneath the culture umbrella. Well-being is very much a part of that. And that's the main focus of my main job.
That's awesome. Well, I think this lands really nicely into, kind of what we're talking about here today. And when I first got the title, I'll admit I had to Google VUCA. I'm like, I know know what it means, but I kind of was like, what does it mean again? I don't know if anybody else has that. I'm like, I think I know what it means, but I'm not quite sure. So I had to kind of look it up. But I love this topic of moving from mindful to mindful in a VUCA world. So let's get this conversation and let's get this conversation started, Susan, and tell us why this is important for us.
Well, it's interesting. So it's funny that I said VUCA is such a hot topic. It has been for years. Volatile, uncertain, chaotic. I can't remember what A is. But my thing is, like, it's just the VUCA part. Like, I don't, it just means things are a little uncomfortable or
Chaotic?
a lot uncomfortable. Yeah,
Right.
chaotic. And, and it's interesting because for the last year plus, that's been a hot topic. And yet for always, it's the world is VUCA. Like it's always uncertain. Life is chaotic. If we're living and we're working and we're raising children or taking care of parents or whatever it might be, that's the world, So what's funny about it is I picked it because it's a hot topic, but it is what's always happening in our lives, regardless of whether there's a pandemic going on, although the pandemic has certainly exacerbated the situation.
Yeah, kind of accelerated it or put a little bit more emphasis on it, right?
Yeah, and I think making everybody feel just a little, it's that uncertainty part, uncomfortable, uncertain about where we're at right now. Like as humans, one of the things we want most of the many things is a sense of certainty and control. And the last year and a half has really challenged that. I mean, and so that's where the discussion we're having today about mindfulness and, do you have a mind full of stuff or are you being mindful is really, really important because if there's anything we've learned in the last year, we can't really control everything that's going on. Right. And it's just going to keep happening no matter how hard we try to fight it. And then what we do, one of the ways we try to fight it is we think. We spend a lot of time thinking. And so then the mind becomes full. And I'd be curious, I'd be curious as we're going through this, because I'm going to throw a few things out just to the folks who are with us.
Yeah.
One of the things I'd be curious about is how many of you have at least one thought, if not 100 thoughts that run on some sort of a loop. They either run daily on a loop or hourly on a loop or, like Mondays, it's the same feeling every Monday, but, it's that, our minds are pretty programmed to loop and that's not necessarily a good thing.
I'm going to drop this into the conversation. I'll just say comment yes. and it does take about 30 seconds, Susan, just so you know, from the time that we announce it and we say, hey, comment yes if this applies to you. Okay. To the time that we actually see comments that are starting to come in. So if you're not seeing a response right away, it's not because people don't think this is important or they're ignoring us. It's just because there's a little bit of a technical delay in the process. So
okay.
So we'll see those come in and I'll start pulling those up on screen. But as you're asking questions, I'll drop those on there for them.
Awesome. Yeah. So that I think is one of the things that's really key. So there's a lot. I could talk about mindfulness all day. We don't want to do that. But one of the things I want to build off of and really help everybody think through as we think about this conversation today is, it's fall. You and I talked about that officially. You're wearing your pumpkin spice season sweatshirt. And we're headed into, for our HR folks, we're headed into open enrollment season. And I know my HR friends, oh my goodness, you have worked so hard for the last year and a half. And so there's a loop that's related to what this fall is going to look like because you've been through this. There's a loop related to whether or not you're exhausted or tired or wanting things to be different. I mean, there's so many mind things that are going on. And the big thing that there's a couple things that I would hope folks take away from today. One of them is to pay attention to what's running in the loop. And it's like, well, I can't, it's subconscious. Well, that's part of being mindful. It's taking a pause at whatever intervals you can find time or make time to pause. So that can be daily, weekly, hourly, whatever works, and just seeing where you're at. I mean, that's the beginning of mindful. Like, what's running through my head? How does my body feel? In general, in the middle of a day. So one of the things, and this is smartwatches, make it easy to do, is you can set an alarm in your watch to, go off once an hour or whatever it is. And that's your opportunity to just pause. So we're not going to worry about the mindful piece yet, but the first step really is just pause and check in, take a couple breaths, and use the technology to help you versus fill you up with more. So that's my first piece that I wanted to think about today, because it's Monday. So for everybody who's like, it's Monday, and that's your loop, or the ones who are, yay, it's Monday. There's a difference there too, between those two pieces. When I talk about mindfulness, I use a image of a saber-toothed tiger in that presentation. So as humans, what's amazing is we have not evolved nearly as quickly as the world and technology has evolved. I mean, in many ways, we are still humans that are cave people. And so whereas way back when, we had lots of periods of rest and doing nothing and, looking at the clouds and relaxing and socializing and wandering around and hunting and, not hunting, but gathering. It was an occasional saber-toothed tiger that we fought. It was an occasional life-threatening experience that we dealt with. Now, in this day and age, I don't know about any of you, but when I open my email box and I see how many emails are in there, that's like one of my many saber-toothed tigers. It's like, how am I going to get it all done? How am I going to get caught up? What do I have to do? It's, it's a lot. And so the problem with that is when we look at something and react to it the same way we would react to a life-threatening saber-toothed tiger, that causes a chemical reaction in our body that we don't necessarily feel, but has a long-term effect on our well-being. That causes a release of chemicals that are having an impact on our overall body, that causes cortisol, which is a stress hormone meant to allow us to lift cars off of people in extreme circumstances, not get through a few emails in the inbox.
I was just thinking when you were talking about that hormone, that stress hormone, I'm like, is it cortisol? I'm like, how do you remember, there's certain words you remember. I'm like, cortisol. I don't know. She's talking about it. Maybe there's more talk of it in the news lately where it's meant to spike, like you said, to help fight the saber-toothed tigers, quote unquote. But when we're in a situation we've been in, especially over the past year and a half, we're like continually fighting the tigers every day, right? And that cortisol can't be healthy running for as long as it is, right?
No, it really is meant to be acute. So it's meant to give us energy and whatever we need, again, to get through like a life-threatening situation. And I've been there. I don't blame everybody. Work in a way is part of our lives. I mean, it is the thing that pays the bills and gives us passion and energy and inspires us. I mean, there's a lot of life to work. And so we want to make sure it goes well. And so there's can be a level of fear there, but that's the first piece. And when I look at the definition of mindful, it is about being consciously aware of something. That's the simplicity of mindful, being consciously aware of something. And so that's why I said, start with just checking in. Where am I at right now? How's my body feeling? What am I doing? How am I feeling? And then the other piece of mindfulness is taking it a step further. How am I reacting to this right now? So thinking about the meetings you're in every day, and paying attention to what am I doing right now? How am I reacting to this? Am I getting excited? Am I getting anxious? Am I checking out? I mean, there could be a lot of different reactions. So the hard part is, well, how do you do that in the moment? So here's another trick. Do it after. It's okay if mindfulness is a new practice, The other thing you could do is set an expectation that when you're done doing something, you'll pause to reflect. That's mindfulness too. So it's delayed mindfulness, but it's still really important, because the more you do it and the more you practice it, the better you'll get at being mindful in the moment. So do you do that, Brenda? Do you ever
like
pause to reflect?
I think sometimes it's like when you're meeting with someone and you're taking notes, and then you look back after the meeting and you look back on your notes and kind of think about what are the action items or what are the things I need to do. But I think also pausing to reflect about, what did I learn? What did I like about this meeting? Sometimes I've been in a board meeting where it was 2.5 hours long. Couldn't we have done that in an hour? What could we do to make better use of our time? So I guess I have a little bit, but I like how you're, making it a conscious decision to be reflective upon that.
Yeah, and I imagine that we have a lot of leaders on this call, and that is Adam Grant is an organizational psychologist who I'm a huge fan of. And if there's anybody from West Bloomfield, Michigan, listening to this, he's actually from West Bloomfield, but he's a famous author. He's a professor at Wharton. And, one of the things that he talks about is just the power of being present, being purposeful in what we do, and how those activities can help us avoid burnout, which is one of the big research areas that he has focused on. So the other part about this presentation that I think is really important, especially for, anybody who's tired, like if you're approaching this from I am at this point, 1.5 years plus into something we haven't had control over. And if the mind loop is frustration and desire for that to end and so on and so forth, then mindfulness is actually something that can help you overcome that. Because what it does is being mindful allows you to control one thing, and burnout can come from lack of control. So one of the things we can do when we're mindful is think about what am I doing right now? What's working well for me? What's not working well for me in that meeting? What went well? What did I learn? Going into this next meeting, how am I going to behave? What are my intentions for this meeting? It's interesting thinking about what you just said about the 2.5 hours, because boy, we all go to so many meetings that could be more efficient. One of the things to help be mindful is to make sure there's an agenda for the meeting. Oprah actually she has a thing she talks about where when she has a meeting with anyone, one-on-one, group meeting, board meeting, whatever it is, she says at the top, what are our intentions for this meeting? I got the trains going. No, it's not the train. Sorry.
Name that sound. Name that sound. Let's see if we got it correctly.
Name that sound.
It sounded like a train a little bit, wasn't it?
It did, but it was coming in the wrong direction. I was like, we got a problem.
Oh, maybe it was a construction truck or something? Or
yeah,
backing up?
You were close. But yeah, so that Oprah's thing is setting intentions for meetings. Mm-hmm. So when you think about, any meeting that you're having with a one-on-one or an individual, really checking in to say, what's our intention for this meeting? And that can be anything from what objectives do we expect to accomplish to, I'm going to be present. I want to be aware. I want to be open. Those are other keys to mindfulness, because the other problem we have, and people are doing it right now, is that when we listen, we process at the same time. And as humans, we assimilate. So we take it and we go, this sounds like, that sounds like, and it's a natural way for us. And it's part of, again, that survival instinct related to fighting the saber-tooth tigers. Our brains work in the sense that they take things and they categorize it so that we can know that next time that tiger comes by, I need to be afraid. I need to make sure I run or go get a weapon. And so that's the thing that's amazing is most of the time today, the email is not trying to kill us. It's not going to bite us, but we are letting it fill our mind with language, words, feelings, whatever it is that isn't helping us feel good.
Right.
And that's a big opportunity when it comes to being mindful, is paying attention to reaction.
I think part of this too, Susan, might be, I mean, there used to be like back in the caveman day, one way of communicating, maybe two, communicating directly or maybe communicating through etchings on stone. And that was kind of it, right? Either person to person or person through hieroglyphics. And nowadays, you've got your cell phone with notifications, things texting. I was just turning mine off a little while ago when we were talking. I'm like, oh, distraction. Email popping up. And if you've got the notifications, LinkedIn notifications popping up, here in chat, we've got notification. I mean, there's so many ways of people communicating with us, and we try to kind of do it all. And that gets into that mindful, right?
Yeah, it does. And so it's interesting. Years ago, I made a decision. I don't remember what was going on. I was probably tired of Facebook, but I made a decision to go in my phone and turn off the notifications. So there was no number associated with how many whatevers I hadn't seen, but I kept it on for LinkedIn. And so it's interesting because what is the thing I gravitate to? It's the thing with the notification.
Yeah.
And so to the point you just made, I think it's really important because everybody has an opportunity to decide what's going to be important. Mm-hmm. So turning off notifications, structuring your day so that you are in control of the day, not the notifications are in control of your day, is really key. And I know it's easier said than done. Some jobs won't let you do that. It depends. But that, doing what you can to manage triggers in your life, in your day. And by triggers, we could go really deep with things that trigger is really important. And how do you know whether something's going to, push buttons? It's about beginning to notice and really paying attention. So I have one trick that I recently pushed myself to better own. So I am a continuous learner. I am obsessed with learning. I host 2 podcasts. Wow. I listen to a zillion podcasts. I love reading. I've got Audible. I've got books. I mean, it's just me. So, and I have a feeling like I'm never done. I'm never done. Like it's both obsession and passion. It's a little. Mm-hmm. So recently I realized, again, sort of paying attention to how things were going, that because of that obsession, there was no downtime. Like I was maximizing every single minute. I walk the dog a couple of times a day. So in the morning it was a book, and in the evening it was a podcast, and it was just like, book solid the whole day. Every minute I was maximizing it. As a result of that continuous effort, what I found was it was like overload. I was filling my mind with too much to process. I mean, I'm a human. I'm not a robot. I'm not a
right.
So one of the things I recently did was I said, I just told myself it's too much. And, you are in meetings all day long and you're emailing all day long. And so I for myself, I said 1 walk a day, nothing.
Nice.
The first few walks were mildly uncomfortable because I was so used to being, sort of just for me, there was frankly a level of guilt there where I'm like, you're wasting time, Yeah. But the thing that I learned, and actually at one of the podcasts I did, we interviewed a psychologist from Texas who affirmed my choice to take a walk off, but downtime. So doing nothing. And this doesn't mean sitting in front of the TV. It means walking outside, or you could be painting, but like no visual stimulation, no brain required to process things, allows us to be more creative, more mindful, and more present in the rest of our awake time that we're trying to be on our game. So downtime, the do nothing type of downtime is so key. And so one of the things you can do though, when you go out on a walk is like, just pay attention. Like, what do the clouds look like today? What are the leaves doing right now? Like, are they right now? I'm sorry to say, for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere, they are in fact starting to lose their green.
Yeah.
But But, and then again, paying attention to your body and feeling the wind, or, that's a mindfulness exercise. It doesn't require sitting down and curling up in your legs into, the lotus position. That is absolutely meditative mindfulness worth investing in.
I like that. And when I do my walks too, I'll admit, like if I'm doing a power walk, I've got my power song jamming because it keeps me pumping. But sometimes when I just go out for a leisurely walk, I like listen to the birds. I try to see how many animals. Is it a dog barking? Is it a squirrel chirping or something in the back? Is it a bird? You can hear noises when you really start to attune yourself to it, right?
Yes. Yeah. Just today, I was so proud of myself because I'm like, I think that's a blue jay. And I looked over and it was a blue jay.
Very good. You got an ear for the birds now.
I've been trying. There's a couple I haven't figured out yet.
Yeah.
So one of the other tricks, like besides getting out, moving, or just getting away, is intentionally releasing what's in the mind. So again, this doesn't require sitting down and meditating, although that is absolutely an effective technique. It takes a lot of practice. But the other thing to do is this simple, like grab a writing utensil, or if you're more of a typer, go for it. But getting the stuff that's in the brain out of the brain, because part of the reason that it's in there is we feel like, well, we don't want to forget. And writing is a powerful tool. Whether you're journaling, if you don't know how to journal, there's no right or wrong way to journal. I don't know about any of the listeners on here or you, Brenda, but when I grew up, somehow I was taught that the journaling or keeping a diary was literally writing an entire account of the day, a play-by-play. And I didn't realize that like it can be whatever you want it to be. Like you could just do a brain dump and write whatever you want, or you can write a letter to somebody and tell them how you feel in your journal, but you never have to send it to them. Or you could draw how you feel. All of that is a process to get what's in here rolling around, maybe on a continuous and ineffective loop, out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, growing up, I was kind of like the diary was kind of like what's going on in my life. And, I used to do a diary up and through high school, through college, and then I kind of stopped after that. But it was kind of like what's going on in my life. How am I feeling? Going through relationships, meeting people, all of that. And it was it's just like, and now I look back, I was like, wow, it's weird to look back and reflect upon some of those thoughts and feel like you remember the moment when you're reading it and be in an entirely different place now.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was on jury duty recently for 8 days. It was a long
wow.
And it was a time when there was a lot of detail. I did in fact realize that I was reminded, because I tend to be a bigger thinker, and details aren't my favorite. But one of the ways that I helped myself stay mindful and in the moment was actually capturing observations in writing during that. So not taking notes. I did take notes, but this was about like, what things did I notice about, just observations, like, oh, how the prosecution behaved, how so that is another way that you can be mindful and in writing. And at the end of the day, what did you notice about your day? What stood out for you? Or super powerful tool for many, many reasons, especially to counteract cortisol if it was running through your system all day, is what 3 things were you grateful for? Or the whole rosebud thorn. Rose is one thing you're grateful for. Bud is one thing you learned. Thorn is one thing you're not so happy about, but acknowledging and processing that is a really big piece of mindfulness.
I'm going to write that one down. Rose, bud, thorn. And I'm putting this in the chat right now to help people who are joining us to remember that as well. When I put my daughter to bed at night, we'll do our prayers and we kind of, reflect upon our day. And I say, what was your favorite part of the day? And then I'll say, how were you kind, or who was kind to you today? But I do like the rosebud thorn, because it's like, it's not all roses every day, going to this analogy here. What did something painful or something that wasn't that positive? What happened and what did we learn from it? Right. I like that technique though. Rosebud thorn. Very good.
Yeah. No, that I love that you have that practice because with your daughter, because that is, a really effective key. And there's a lot of ways to do the rosebud thorn piece. More recently, I've learned of that thorn piece, ignoring pain.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because as humans, or maybe it's an American thing. I'm not sure what it is, but this feeling and this pressure that we always have to be happy, that every moment has to be happy. And, while gratitude practice is extraordinarily beneficial,
Right.
just sort of glossing over the stuff that wasn't great or isn't going well isn't effective, because then it festers inside, literally, and it can get into our subconscious. What we're talking about today is all about the conscious piece of the puzzle, and being mindful. There's a whole other layer to this that if we don't acknowledge where we're at and process the stuff that maybe we don't love, we might miss it.
That's a very good point. And having the time to reflect. I've heard so many themes that are coming up in different ways in our talk here. Susan, what I want to do now is I want to invite our audience into the discussion along with us and see if anyone has a question that they'd like to ask, maybe about being mindful, maybe something else, we're talking about today prompted you to remember a technique that you're using in your own life on how to be, more productive, more mindful, or just add some of that space in our very busy lives. So if you have a question or a comment for Susan, go ahead and drop that into chat, and I'll be taking these up on screen. I see one has already come in from Tegan, and she's saying, if I don't take my me hour, I'm not as productive. That's there, Susan.
That's a really good observation. So Tegan is on her game.
Yeah.
And me hour. So for those of you who look at that and go, a me hour, how does she have a whole hour? If that seems like a stretch, me minutes, me 30 minutes, me 5, whatever it might be. There's a technique, a trick that we use when in the general well-being space, that even if it's, we use it for physical activity. You shouldn't, no human should sit for more than an hour straight. That's like, that is, a good reminder. So we say sit for 60, move for 5. So you could use a technique like that to also take some me time. So, planning your meetings to end at 5 minutes before the end of the hour, so that you can have a moment to process what you just did and then get ready for the next one, a mindful transition.
I love that. Sit for 60, move for 5. And combining that with the technique you talked about earlier, either having your watch or your phone or your calendar set up that way. I've even heard some people saying meetings are no longer 1 hour long, they're 55-minute long. And this was, I guess, a little bit in the pre-COVID days when you needed to have 5 minutes to go get a coffee refill, bio break, whatever you needed to do so you weren't running 5 minutes late into the next meeting. But having that, whatever it is, that time, that buffer is really important there in the middle.
Really important. And if you're going to borrow the idea of setting intentions at the top of the meeting, one of the other things you can do is use that as your chance to say, and my intention is for us to end 5 minutes early.
I love that.
We all have time to transition from this meeting to the next meeting mindfully.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll even do that sometimes when I'm in a client call at the beginning of the call or a training session. I'll say, we're expected to end by 10:30. There's a chance we could run a few minutes over with Q&A. Is that okay with everyone, or do we need to have a hard stop? And if someone says, no, I actually have a 10:30, so I'll say, okay, let's stop at 10:25 instead, and let's add that buffer in. Moving to another question that came in here. This one's from Evan. Susan, if you could kind of summarize, what would you say are the top 3 actions you would recommend? And these may be things you've already talked about, but what would you say to Evan?
Yeah. So I'm thinking about this. I think first thing is that in the present moment, if we are fully here, whatever happened before is irrelevant. Whatever's gonna happen is irrelevant. And so, doing what you can to pull in, take a deep breath, and that those mindful minutes at the top of every hour will have an impact on feelings of overwhelm, because it will pull you into this minute, into this moment, into right now, the one thing we all only have. Tomorrow may not come, yesterday's gone, and yes, tomorrow's absolutely going to come if everything works, but where we need to be is right here, right now. So that's one. I think the other thing to think about is list making. If you've never heard of the book, The Checklist Manifesto, or some of the other books out there that are about list making, getting this stuff out of your head onto paper or into OneNote or whatever you're using, it frees up capacity for the computer, which is your brain, to do other stuff. And it allows you to feel comfortable that you've got it all, and like, yep, I've got a checklist. It's a full page. I keep adding to it, but I take the stuff out and I put it in there so that I'm not like, wait, what was I going to do? I mean, looking at my desk around me, I've got lists for what I got to do with family later. And it's one thing so that I don't have to use bandwidth for that.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing that I would encourage you to do is either in conversation with yourself or someone who is an advocate or a resource or support team for you, you can process with them too. And I would have two parts of that conversation. Can I have 5 minutes? I do a brain dump, just like you would in paper. Here's everything that's going on, da, 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 da. And then at the end of that, the goal is for you to say, what's most important to me right now is X. So that maybe you just get all the stuff out, but in the end, what you've got is your one priority. And the other thing that will happen is sometimes when we talk about all the overwhelm out loud, we end up at a point where we've let it go and we've released it to sort of into the atmosphere, into the universe. Right. And we walk away with, one priority as opposed to the swimming of the mess of the mush in the brain.
It almost reminds me, Susan, of like if you take a bottle of, in Michigan, we call it pop. Anywhere else in the world, you might call it soda. And you only have, maybe it's like half drank, and maybe you have like half of the bottle and you shake it up, and that creates the pressure. And you need to release the pressure. And you do that when you open the cap, you hear that sound, that carbonation is being released. If you don't do that and you keep shaking the bottle, eventually when you open it up, it's going to explode all over the place, right? Yes. And that tension needs someplace to go. If you don't ease it out, it's going to explode out, right?
Yes, that is an amazing metaphor right there on the fly. That was awesome. And I think that there is, again, I come back around to sort of this pressure on so many people have taken on to feel like, I'm good. I got it all under control. And, if you haven't read Brene Brown or listened to Brene Brown, go get some Brene Brown and some vulnerability and some courage and some braving the wilderness, or any one of her books will help you see that, that vulnerability and, the reality that we're all human. We are not perfect. I told one of my team members last week, you are super and you are human, but you are not superhuman.
We would like to be.
We would like to be, but yeah.
Yeah. So we're nearing the end of our time here together, Susan, and I want to quickly share your LinkedIn profile up on screen. I'm doing a little bit of piloting and co-piloting. I'm going to pull it up on screen here. I've got the URL below if you guys want to visit Susan's profile, and it should be up on screen. By the way, love your LinkedIn header. Is that from the Lego movie, or where's that from?
So that was from earlier this summer in June for Pride Month. Lego actually made a Lego set of all the colors of the people. And they did a whole thing around everyone is awesome. And I do think everyone is awesome. So I was like, I am totally borrowing this. Thank you, Lego.
Oh, I think
so yeah.
Yeah, and really nice. So I pulled your profile up on screen, Susan. Are you open to accepting invitations from people if they reach out to connect with you, or what's your kind of philosophy there?
I'm absolutely open. I am a connector. It's one of my top 5 in the Gallup Strength Finder, and I love people, and so I'm happy to connect with folks. And I do post a lot on lots of things. So if you connect or follow me, I try to be as educational and helpful in my posts. So it would be worth it because you'll keep in the loop.
Very good to know. And I recommend, if you do end up visiting Susan's profile and inviting her to connect, mention that you heard her on the LinkedIn Live today. If there was something that resonated with you that was memorable, mention that in the invitation as well. I always find you get a better acceptance rate if you include the note when you invite people to connect. And I'm sure Susan will appreciate knowing that you heard her on the show today here too. Awesome. All right, Susan. So as we wrap, any final comments that you want to offer to the group, or kind of closing out on the conversation here today?
You know, I one of the themes that's come up in this is grace. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of that underarching theme or underrunning theme there. And I would say grace and curiosity are sort of the two things that, if you think about them and you're like, wait, we're talking about mindfulness. No, well, so grace and curiosity are two. One, like, be as kind to yourself as you would to the person you love the most. We are our own harshest critic, and that criticism of self does not help us be more mindful. It just creates more, pressure in the soda bottle, so to speak. And then the curiosity thing is a part of the awareness of mindfulness. Like, rather than processing and coming to conclusions and letting the brain computer run, just paying attention with the mind of Curious George, like just, that's interesting. My number one word that I have used for the last year and a half has been fascinating. Because that is how I am managing, in some ways, my strong type A desire to get things under control in this world today. Yeah. And instead, I just keep saying, this is going to be fascinating. Yeah. This is going to be fascinating. And it's how I'm kind of avoiding getting to be a mindful mess.
Yeah. Well, really great way of kind of bringing it all together. So if you're just joining now, you can always click to watch the playback, go back to the beginning of the video after we're done with the broadcast for today. And I want to ask all of you one favor. After you're done watching the video, it'll pop up as a post, and then there'll be a share button at the bottom. So if you could, please click to share the video with your network, tag Susan, and spread the word, because it might reach somebody who is really struggling with this whole concept of kind of mind clutter and maybe cortisol overload because of the past year and a half. And let's be honest, Susan, I mean, we were talking before the show about when, you and I are going to be speaking at conferences and events in person again. And it seems like they started, the organizers started planning for conferences and events this fall, and then some of them are starting to pull back. So I don't think we're out of this yet. So the cortisol is going to continue, unfortunately. Yeah. So I think the talk here today was really relevant in helping all of us out. So I thank you for that, Susan.
Thank you. My pleasure. This was fun.
All right, guys. Well, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. And again, please click to share the video with someone in your network, and maybe share something along with them. And you never know when it may reach someone where the message is going to hit them at the very right time. So stay safe, everyone. Stay healthy and have a wonderful week. And Susan, I will see you at some point in the future. And in the meantime, we'll see each other online.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone.